You are Locked On Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Braves POSTCAST, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Grant McAuley, Jake Mastroianni with you after what was a very good start to a homestand for the Braves, and Chris Sale was a huge reason why the Atlanta ace left-hander continues to add to his Cy Young case, and he helped the Braves add a much-needed win in the first of three against the Colorado Rockies. We'll talk a lot about that. We'll, of course, get you set up for Game 2 of the series. We have some injury updates to discuss on this edition of the show as well. Before we get started, I want to remind you, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta, and also subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts. Tonight's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started with that. Well, Jake, we know that the weekend was not what the Braves wanted. They lost 3 out of 4 to the Philadelphia Phillies. It seemed to halt some momentum that Atlanta had going. It also dealt them a blow in their hopes of maybe climbing back into this National League East race. But the mission continues for the Braves here in the month of September. It is win games. It is win series. And if you do enough of that, find your way into October. And Chris Sale, it would look like, is going to continue to be a central character in making all of that happen.
And we talked about it after the loss. I mean, having Chris Sale on the mound to bounce back from that, it's exactly who you want. And he was able to get it done. And as you said, the Braves still have everything in front of them to reach their goals this year. As rough as the weekend was in Philadelphia, there was a lot of momentum, positive momentum going into that series. You have a pretty favorable schedule here to start the month of September. So you got a chance to really get back on track here and just really settle down, start playing good baseball, and get into the postseason.
Well, a 3-0 win over the Rockies would certainly qualify as playing good baseball. The headliner, though, was Chris Sale. He delivered yet another strong performance, strengthened that Cy Young bid, which at this point, Jake, with respect to anybody else who's having a good or even a great season, you start to look across Major League Baseball, and it's hard to find anybody who's having the kind of season that Chris Sale is having.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Wheeler we saw on Saturday, he's the only one that's even close. Chris Sale is the favorite at the moment, and I think there's a little bit of a gap there, but certainly Zach Wheeler, we know what he can do. I think if anybody's going to press Chris Sale, it's going to be him, but if Sale does this the rest of the way, there's nobody that's going to touch him. Obviously, he has been fantastic all year long and just a great start. And like we've talked about, it's one of those times that it seems like Chris Sale has had to do a lot this year where the Braves come in after losing a game or two, and you need him to be that stopper. And he has been that guy, at least has gone out there and given you a great chance to win. Now, the offense doesn't always help him out and didn't necessarily get a lot of help in this one. Fortunately, didn't need it, but he has been that guy for the Braves all year long when they've been on some of these losing streaks or had some bad series to be able to help you bounce back and get going again. So again, it's the guy you wanted, and he came out and delivered.
Yeah, I mean, they call that your stopper. I mean, a lot of people think about that from, all right, well, who's coming in and getting things done in the bullpen? Who's getting the last 3 outs? Maybe that's the definition or what people envision. But there can also be a stopper in this rotation, somebody that does put a halt to losing streaks, or that, if on the flip side of that, doesn't really have to stop anything. He just keeps it going because of how good he is. But it does seem like Chris Sale has been in that position that we've talked about so much this season, where you needed that momentum boost from him on whatever side that needed to be or whatever form that needed to be. And he has delivered time and again in a season of things that have gone awry. Sale has been dominant, prime of his career. Great, Jake. He's leading Major League Baseball in all the Triple Crown categories now, including wins, strikeouts, and ERA, obviously. Tops not just in the National League, but tops in all of baseball. We'll talk more about that later. He's also leading Major League Baseball, as you would imagine a strikeout pitcher of his caliber could, in strikeouts per 9 among all qualified starters in MLB. I mean, this is a prime version of Chris Sale, and I think it goes back to something that we've talked about throughout the summer as well. When Chris Sale's healthy, Chris Sale is as good as he's ever been, and he is definitely healthy in 2024.
Yeah, something we've talked about a lot. I mean, everybody just assumed that Chris Sale has diminished because he's gotten older and he hasn't pitched a lot, but we don't know that because we haven't seen him pitch a lot over the last 4 years. And now that we are seeing a healthy version of him, he's talked a lot about the fact that this was the first time in a while that he's had a full offseason to prepare for the regular season. And he has mentioned again several times how big that was for him coming into this year. He also mentioned in postgame the fact that the Braves did a good job of giving all their starters, a blow in the first half, and that's helped keep him and others fresh down the stretch here. So I think all of that, is kind of contributing to the season that Chris Sale is having. But when it comes down to it, the guy's just a great pitcher, Grant. Again, we just haven't seen it because he hasn't been healthy, but he still is a very good pitcher with really good stuff. And this is what he can do. Even at his age, 35, he can still do it at this point because the stuff is that good. The velocity is there. That slider is just so good and devastating on hitters. So it's just, it's the prime Chris Sale, like you said, and we're still seeing it, and we're seeing a healthy version of that.
It is. He made some history tonight. We'll talk about that a little more later when we get inside the score and go through everything that Chris Sale was able to accomplish on this night, because he did a couple of things that were pretty darn impressive. Atlanta got a couple of early runs for him. The bullpen also took it from there. 14th shutout of the year, Jake. I mean, last year, it seemed like we were always talking about what's this offense doing that no one else across baseball is doing. Well, what's this pitching staff doing in 2024 that no one else across baseball is doing? They came in with the second best ERA in the majors. They came in as the top strikeout club in the major leagues as well. That only got better here tonight with what was done by Chris Sale and company with that 14th shutout of the year. Pretty darn impressive for the staff overall.
It is, and it's truly crazy to talk about this season coming in. We all thought, it might not be as great as 2023, but the offense would lead things, and you just hope you get, some good pitching and your pitchers stay healthy. And it has been the exact opposite. It has been the starting pitching carrying this, and Sarah Langs has been keeping up with it. This is now starting pitchers have allowed 3 runs or fewer in 22 straight games now, extending their longest streak since 1893. Is just, again, it is an incredible performance by the entire pitching staff. Obviously, Chris Sale leading the way there. And it's what's led this Braves team to the point where they are to at least have a chance. And again, it's just nobody would have guessed this coming into the season, but that's baseball for you. And I'm glad that the Braves have these starters. Glad that Alex Anthopoulos didn't just sit back in the offseason, went out and got a couple of starters in Chris Sale and Ronaldo Lopez, who, by the way, has an ERA of 2 this year. So it's been remarkable watching the starting pitch, and it's fun watching them every single night.
Yeah, I mean, you can't foresee everything that can happen during the course of a season, and certainly the Braves have gotten, too many reminders of that throughout the course of this year. But it also goes to show that what they were trying to do in the offseason, these moves they were making, I mean, it's kind of a what-if scenario, too, like you wish. I mean, I remember talking to Dave O'Brien a couple of weeks ago and him saying, man, if you could put the 2024 pitching staff with a 2023 offense, I was like, yeah, they might win 130 games, but unfortunately we can't do that. But for as good as they were, all of that aside, last year, offensively speaking, they're every bit as good pitching-wise here a year later. It's just crazy because I don't think too many of us, even though you would look at this Braves club and say, that's a pretty formidable pitching staff, and doing all of this without Spencer Strider, I mean, there's just so much about this that just it doesn't make sense. If you were to read the script for it, you'd probably reject it and send it to rewrites and tell somebody to get real. But it's been a very, very impressive run for this Braves pitching staff. Every one of these games is obviously important. We talked about that and continue to talk about that on a daily basis. You have to take each game and each series as you can as you go. And they needed this win to get back on track because, and we'll talk about this a lot more in detail later on, but this wild card race, Jake, it could get pretty wild because you got the Mets and the Cubs all of a sudden breathing down the Braves' necks. It's not out of the realm of possibility that the 2 wild card teams in front of the Braves, there could be some movement in that between all 5 of these teams, because we're talking about the Padres, the Diamondbacks, the Braves, the Mets, and the Cubs. Yeah, it could get a little bit crazy here down the stretch, and you got to keep winning, basically. And that's what the Braves are trying to do each and every day. And they're approaching it, I think, in a very singular sense, a very, very focused manner in win each day and then move on to the next day, because I think they've learned this year they can't get too far ahead of themselves.
They certainly can't. And look, while we as fans can look at the schedule and say, okay, it's a pretty formidable schedule for the Atlanta Braves. Haven't looked at the others, but you got to think they have one of the easier schedules in the month of September. All of their games against teams over 500 come at home. And that's the Dodgers, 4 against the Dodgers, 3 against the Mets, and 3 against the Royals. So it's a pretty easy schedule for the Braves. But we've seen this year, this Braves team has struggled against teams that they're supposed to beat. So you can't even really look at that. You do have to just focus on each and every day. But, it does help the Braves, obviously, to have that type of schedule. And if you have the month that you should have with what you have coming up, I think it's going to put the Braves in a position to get to the postseason. And look, if you win 15, 16 games this month, which, again, I think is possible with the schedule they have, and you don't make the playoffs, I think you just tip your cap at that point and say that all the other teams just played amazingly. But yeah, 5 teams fighting for 3 spots. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, this is what Major League Baseball wanted when you expand the postseason like you did, to have all these teams still in the hunt down the stretch here. But I do think the Braves, have the path laid out in front of them to be able to get it done if they can play consistently good baseball. And we just haven't seen that enough this year, Grant, for me to feel completely confident about that.
Yeah, it does remain more of an if than a win when it comes to the consistency, especially offensively speaking. I mean, I don't know what else we can say about this pitching staff in terms of what it's done and a full body of work to say they have done their part. But offensively, can you do enough is going to be a big question for the Braves. Of course, it wouldn't be the 2024 Braves without having a game with an injury scare. And we had one of those. Whit Merrifield hit in the back of the head just underneath the helmet by Colorado reliever Jeff Criswell in the 7th inning. Left the game under his own power, walked off. You could tell he was none too pleased, pretty hot about it in getting hit in the back of the head. And I don't blame him because, it's one thing to get hit. It's another thing when somebody comes up and in and hits you on the helmet or anywhere around it. He was able to pass all of the concussion tests, so it could be back in the lineup as soon as tomorrow. But as far as scares go, getting your bell rung like that is not something you ever want to see for any reason whatsoever.
Yeah, not with the news that, we have with Ozzie Albies that I know we'll touch on later, but you need Whit Merrifield in this lineup. I mean, He has been great. I know he's had a bit of a cold streak here recently, but, you put him back down in the order where maybe he should have been. I was fine with moving him up there. You play the hot hand with that spot. But it's a guy, just his veteran leadership that he brings, his ability to get on base and his speed. It's a guy the Braves can't afford to lose. I never thought we'd be at that point where you say you can't afford to lose a Whit Merrifield, but that's where we are. So hopefully it is okay. Mark Bowen saying he did pass all the concussion tests and might play tomorrow. So that is certainly good news.
Yeah, no, it would be a very good development for the Braves and a scary moment as well. So good to see that he was able to, walk off the field under his own power, because that is not always a guarantee when those kind of scary things happen, and that he was able to pass those tests. So some good news this evening about Whit Merrifield and his condition heading into the rest of the series. We got a lot more to get to here on this edition of the Braves Postcast. We'll talk a lot more about Chris Sale and all of the things he did, some of the history that he made and has been making here lately as a left-hander in the Braves organization that you might be surprised, because I know I sure was. And we'll also talk about the injury updates that Jake has mentioned. Ozzie Albies spoke before the game, and we'll get you caught up on everything he says about a potential return. And, of course, we'll look ahead to Game 3. Lots to come your way here on the Braves Postcast. Let me tell you about the best way to buy tickets to virtually any and everything. That's Game Time, and Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so that you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. There are plenty of things to love about Game Time and the ticketing experience, including the panoramic view you get from your seat on the app before you buy. And that lowest price guarantee for Game Time means that they will credit you 110% of the difference should you find a lower price ticket in that same section and in that same area. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, and you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Just download the Game Time app, create that account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get that $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Let's take a look at the line score and the box score of this game, Jake. It was a good one for the Braves, a well-played game. And there have been a lot of these lately. Unfortunately, Atlanta has ended up on the wrong side of some really well-pitched games here in the not-too-distant past with the way things went in Philadelphia. But they were able to blank the Rockies on 6 hits were the Braves. 1 error committed by Colorado, 3 runs, 7 hits, no errors for the Braves. Atlanta leaving 8 men on base. The Rockies stranding 7 for the Braves. They improve on the season as they continue their winning ways. The Colorado Rockies, meanwhile, a club well under 500. You needed to beat up on this team. There's just no two ways about it, and the Braves were able to do that. Chris Sale picked up the win. He is now 16-3 on the year. It felt like he was stuck on 14 wins pretty much forever, but he was finally able to get that 16th win of the year here as he's won back-to-back starts at this point. The save goes to Raisel Iglesias, his 29th, and Kyle Freeland takes the loss for the Rockies. He drops to 4-7 on the year. Rockies now 51-88. The Braves 75-63 on the season. Let's talk Chris Sale, because that seems to be a pretty good topic for these shows typically, and he did not disappoint on this night as he was able to just absolutely baffle the Colorado Rockies through 7 innings, 6 hits, no runs, no walks, 9 strikeouts for Chris Sale. who now has a major league leading 206 strikeouts to go with a major league leading 16 wins and a major league leading 246 ERA. You may sense the theme there. There is. This is a major league triple crown caliber season thus far for Chris Sale. I mean, you talk about Cy Young type performances. Jake, this one checked a lot of boxes, and Chris Sale has been checking those boxes just about every time out in 2024.
He has. It's been fun to watch. We always talk about it every time we say this. It's been great for him pretty much all season long, except for that one game against the A's, which still just baffles me. But again, that's baseball. And it's just, the Chris Sale dominance just continues. 15 straight starts now, giving up 2 earned or less. Again, he goes out every time. He dominates. He gives your team a chance to win. And this is just another example of that. And the way that he's able to just get it done. And I love this outing in particular. He only threw 93 pitches, I think, in this one. It was under 100, I know. But I loved in the 6th inning, after that leadoff triple, he just kind of, I don't want to say emptied the tank, but he just really bared down right there and said, I am not going to let this run score. Gets a couple of strikeouts there. But you love that mentality from Chris Sale. And it's what a lot of people talked about when you went and got him, just kind of that fiery attitude, mentality, whatever you want to call it. He has that. He has that factor when he goes out there, and it's just truly fun to watch when he gets in those situations. Just feels like he turns it up another notch and has that other level that he can go to. I know he came back out for the 7th as well, ran into some trouble there, but luckily was against the bottom of their lineup and able to escape. But yeah, I mean, he's just a fun pitcher to watch, and you just love seeing that bulldog mentality out of him whenever he does get in those spots.
Yeah, first 200 strikeout season since 2019 for Chris Sale, the 8th of his career. But here's the thing that really got me, Jake, is first 200 strikeout season by a Braves left-hander. Now, I didn't realize in his previous start that he had surpassed Tom Glavine's single-season record for most strikeouts by a left-handed pitcher. It's 192 as his Cy Young season of 1991. Warren Spahn and Denny LeMaster are the only other 2 lefties who had even struck out 190 batters in a season in Braves franchise history. That goes back, 153 years now? Just an incredible accomplishment by Chris Sale. But I also broke this down. You can find this on social media where I'm at Grant McAuley. As you can see there on your screen, it's crazy to see that Chris Sale has done this in roughly 90 fewer innings than Glavine or Spahn. LeMaster was a little bit under that, but either way, none of those guys got to 200 strikeouts in a single season. It was Chris Sale, the first Braves pitcher to do that as a southpaw. So just another feather in his cap in what has been a season in which he has continually shown in all kinds of different ways that not only does he have plenty left in the tank, but he has perhaps some unfinished business with that Cy Young award that he was never able to claim over in the American League, despite being one of the most dominant strikeout pitchers of this or any generation.
Yeah, I certainly hope he gets it. I mean, obviously the team, and we're focused on getting to the postseason. And he talked about after the game, it's great to see all these historic things that he's doing, and that's fun. But he himself said, that's something to look back on in the offseason. Right now, we're focused on getting to the postseason, and that's great. And that's what your players are supposed to say. But as fans, I mean, it is truly incredible to look at what he's doing and being the first Braves lefty to get there. Like, that was a surprise to me. I just assumed, I know the game's different today. Strikeouts are more prevalent, but pitchers also don't throw as many innings. So you just assume back in the day, you're going to accumulate, 200 strikeouts over a 250, 300 inning type season, like we saw guys throw back in the day. But Chris Sale, whether he goes into the Hall of Fame or not, I think he has a very good case, especially if he can get to the Cy Young this year. He is one of the best strikeout pitchers in the history of the game. I mean, you can go look at the numbers and what he has done. That is something that he has done time and time again. He has been great at getting those swings and misses, racking up those strikeouts, and he's doing it again this year.
Yeah, no, he definitely is, and a chance to do some pretty special things. Cy Young Award, Triple Crown, all of that. And look, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, this is not things that Chris Sale is going to speak in long prose and verbosely about after games. I mean, it's great, and he can reflect on all this stuff when the season's done. His job is to go out there and win, give his team a chance to win, and hopefully be able to take this thing on into the postseason and do it some more. And he's been a huge part of the Braves making a push towards that. I also he worked in the low 90s a lot early in this game, and all of a sudden he turned that heat up on the Rockies when he was going through the order again, and especially when he got into some trouble, as you mentioned. Just the little things that he is able to do, and the fact that he has that up his sleeve if he needs it, and pun intended there, he's able to use it. Now the Braves got him some early runs, a couple in the 3rd inning, RBI double from Gio Urshela. He ended up scoring on an error, and that put 2 runs on the board. They added another on a Michael Harris sac fly. It plated Luke Williams, who came in to run for Whit Merrifield in the 7th inning. Jake, quickly, I mean, this was not another offensive showcase for the Braves, but I guess when you've got a pitcher like Chris Sale and you have Joe Jimenez come in and do what he has done in this game, I mean, he strikes out the side again. Raisel Iglesias comes in, another scoreless inning for him, and we'll talk more about the award that he just got for the month of August. But this, I think, is probably what we would refer to as the blueprint of how the Braves believe that they can win if they have the opportunity to advance into the postseason.
Yeah, this is the formula. And look, you're going to face tougher offenses in the postseason if you get there than the Rockies, but this is the formula. It's Chris Sale, it's dominant starting pitching, get it to the back end, and Johnson and Jimenez and Iglesias, and hope that you can get 3, 4, 5 runs, and that's going to be enough. It is a little disappointing. The offense couldn't do a little bit more on this night. Middle of the order didn't exactly have it going. Some tough luck. Some tough batted ball luck as well in there, but the bottom of the lineup, Whit, getting a couple of hits, getting on base, scoring from first on Gio's hit, who had 2. Michael Harris had 2 hits and had the sac fly at the top of the order, so that's great to see. Those guys in the middle get going. So, and if they do, then I think this probably is one of those games where you see them score 4, 5, 6 runs. Unfortunately, it just wasn't their night. But sometimes you see that with a guy like Chris Sale on the mound. You don't need much. You get 2 or 3 early, and with the way he's going, you probably feel like that's going to be enough, but you still would have liked to seen some tack-on runs. A good play from Toley over at first base, robbed Marcell Ozuna of driving in 1 or 2 as well there. But yeah, when you got Chris Sale on the mound dealing like he was, 3 runs seems like plenty.
It does, but I will say this. I mean, that 3rd run felt pretty big when they were able to add that one on late, because there have been times for the Braves, and we've seen it all season long, where, they score a couple early, and then they just can't find that extra one they needed. Obviously, in a shutout, it doesn't really matter, but in terms of just feeling like, a lot of things are happening that need to happen, adding on a run late is something you'd like to see this club start making a habit out of. We got a lot more to talk about here as we continue on the Braves postcast. We've got to get into, of course, the wild card race, what's going on there, an injury update for all-star second baseman Ozzie Albies, and we'll be talking about Game 2 of this 3-game set, which is happening on a Wednesday at Truist Park. It all comes your way next on the Braves postcast. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and we have something a little bit different for you now. Now through September the 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and your current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook and take advantage of this offer today. Well, Jake, a lot of things going on here as we come down the stretch in this edition of the show. The Braves kind of looking over their shoulder, I would imagine, at this point, even if they don't want to talk about it a whole lot in detail publicly. Well, there are players out here that are doing it for them. Mets have been closing in on them for a minute here. The Cubs not far behind. Atlanta leads the New York Mets by half a game for the 3rd and final wildcard spot in the National League. New York won again, beating Boston 7-2 on Tuesday. Chicago Cubs, though, were shut out by the Pittsburgh Pirates and are 4 games back there. But as we talked about a little bit at the top of the show, and we can delve into a little bit more now, every one of these games, every one of these series and going down the stretch are going to be crucial for the Braves to be able to hold off, especially a couple of clubs that have gotten hot of late and are pushing them for that final spot to the postseason.
Yeah, it's going to be a tight race. And look, it might not be so much as looking behind because the Mets are playing so good. It might be looking ahead, and do the Padres or the Diamondbacks falter down the stretch here? Maybe you jump one of those teams. But either way, as I said early on, Braves have everything in front of them. If they just take care of business, and something they haven't done a great job of this year, I think they're going to be in the postseason. The schedule lines up for that to happen, but they have to win games like this. They have to beat teams like the Rockies, the Blue Jays, the Reds, the Nationals. They have to take care of those teams. And if they do that, then like I said, I think they'll be perfectly fine. And if not, and you do take care of business, that just means those other teams played much better, and you just kind of tip your cap. But, with everything that's happened this year, all the injuries they've had, everything kind of lines up in September for the Braves to get where they want to be.
Yeah, Brian Snitker said before the game today, like, look, we wake up every day knowing that we have something to play for and coming to the ballpark and wanting to pick up a win. And that has not changed over the course of the season, despite the highs and lows that this club has dealt with. It may not look the way you thought it would in the National League East standings, but as we know, that's not the only road to October. And some clubs that have taken that wild card road have gone pretty far in the postseason as well. Could the Braves get hot at the right time? They still believe they can, and we'll all find out, of course, together. We have to talk about National League reliever of the month, Raisel Iglesias, though. Another scoreless outing tonight as he picked up save number 29. Month of August was absolutely nuts. He had that string of 38 consecutive hitters set down, 11 games, 13 and a third innings overall. This man allowed 2 hits, walked no one, allowed no runs, went 3-0 with 6 saves as well, and punched out 14 batters in 13 and a third innings, bringing his ERA down. I believe at this point is down to 129 on the season. Just an absolute tour de force at the back end of the bullpen. Raisel Iglesias, I went back and looked at the career numbers as well. This guy has had the best run of his career since putting on a Braves uniform.
I mean, it's been remarkable, and it's one of those trains at the deadline, where you give up Tucker Davidson and Jesse Chavez, I think, and you're taking on money in that deal, and that's why the Angels did it. But you get a guy that has just been absolutely nails for you since coming over that month of August. You just can't help but laugh at it. And you had a couple of outings there where he goes extra inning. Now, the one time he did it September 1st wasn't in August, but 3 times now in the past month, he goes multiple innings. And I think all 3 of those were in extra innings where he leaves the ghost runner at second base. So it's one of the more incredible runs that I've seen for a reliever. Now, I know Eric Gagne had that big year where from beginning to end, he was just untouchable and dominant on the mound. And Raisel Iglesias does it in a different way with all the pitchers that he can mix in, not your typical closer pitch mix. But I mean, I don't think you can find too many closers that have been this dominant as Raisel Iglesias has been this year, and especially not in this past month or so stretch he's been on.
Yeah, I mean, he's putting together a career season, and that might be putting it lightly for Iglesias, who has been terrific for the Braves and is helping to create what they hope is a lockdown bullpen that they can utilize in October and deploy as needed as well. Before the game, we had a chance to speak with Ozzie Albies. He said he's feeling good. It looks like that return timetable, though, initially, and I kind of wondered about this to begin with, but Alex Anthopoulos brought it up right around the trade deadline as soon as they got Jorge Soler saying, look, we're really encouraged by Ozzie Albies, who'd really only been on the IL for about a week and a half, but the initial x-rays showed that, and Brian Snitker kind of explained this and went into it a little bit more, but that the fact that he didn't need surgery, that it wasn't displaced, the fracture, that it wasn't going to be a longer recovery. That is, I think, where the encouragement started. And maybe the healing time, I mean, you can't make time go any faster. I think we've all learned that in various walks of life. And Ozzie's saying that he really needs this next couple of weeks to get himself back up to full speed. So that would fit with the prognosis, the longer end of it, the 8-week recovery time. Jake, I don't know if this is altogether surprising, but probably a little disappointing because it did sound like, at least there for a while, that Ozzie might be able to get back a little bit sooner. But the good news is he is progressing. He is getting there. It's just going to take a little bit longer.
Like I said, not surprising, but maybe a little disappointing because we were all kind of hoping for that optimistic outcome. And now if you look at it, if he doesn't come back till September 18th, 19th, somewhere around that, if that's, the 8-week time frame, he's going to have to then go on a rehab assignment. Gwinnett only plays through September 22nd, so you're not going to have a lot of times to get some at-bats in. And then you're going to bring him back in the middle of a postseason race, and you don't really have much time for him to get back up to speed. So it's not an ideal situation, but obviously want Ozzie back and want the greater version of Ozzie back, get him in here soon. But yeah, we were all hoping for a little bit better news there.
Yeah, and obviously, I don't know if I need to tell you, but I will anyway, because it's another player the Braves hope to see again this year, Austin Riley, who still very much has his cast on. You kind of have to wonder, what will the road back look like for him, the recovery look like for him, because it would seem like, at least to me, especially with minor league season ending about a week before Major League Baseball's regular season ends, it's going to be pretty tough to get him back up all the way to speed. But those are things they can handle in about 3, 4, 5 weeks, whatever the case may be. I guess in 5 weeks, you'd be talking more about, can he impact anything that you're doing in October? And that, of course, remains a big question. But for Albies, has not started hitting, off live pitching yet, has been doing some swinging, some work in the cage, and did his fielding practice today for the first time since fracturing his left wrist. Charlie Morton, meanwhile, would love to help the Braves secure a series win in Game 2 against Colorado. Wasn't bad last time out against Philly. Obviously, we know what went wrong in the 6th inning. He has been pitching pretty well of late, and the Braves could use a solid start from Charlie Morton to continue the trend of what Braves starting pitchers have been doing as he faces off with Bradley Blaylock of Colorado.
Yeah, it's been a good little stretch, 3-game stretch here for Charlie Morton, 4-game stretch actually, but he did walk 4 in his last outing. Like I said, know what kind of happened in that last inning there for him, but need another good outing, need this pitching staff to continue on this good stretch that they've been on, but would love to see the offense as well. Just kind of get back going what we saw before they faced Zach Wheeler on Saturday.
Yeah, if they want to do that thing they did in Minnesota where they scored like 9 runs in the first 2 innings, I don't think Charlie Morton would be upset about it, but either way, the Braves offense, if it could get some early runs for him to work with, that could go a long way towards helping secure that series victory. And the Braves and Rockies will be meeting on Wednesday at 7:20 p.m. Eastern time. That's the first pitch for Game 2 of the series. Morton 7-7 with a 4.26 ERA. Blaylock is 1-1 with a 4.98 for the Rockies. That brings us to the end of this edition of the Braves Postcast. As always, we appreciate you being part of the show and for riding along with us. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, the Braves picking up a 3-0 win over the Rockies to take Game 1 of this 3-game set. We will be back with you later this week to wrap things up. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley, and until next time, so long, everyone.